We have spent time discussing soil as it relates to home gardens. What about gardeners who want to grow plants but have no space to dig? Container gardening is the answer. It is important to note that the soil used for container gardens is completely different compared to the soil from the ground. In this video, we will discuss how soil, fertilizers, and compost differ when growing in containers, including indoor plants, outdoor plants, and raised beds. When you grow plants in a container, everything the plant needs must be in the container. Unlike plants in native soil, the roots cannot grow outwards to find more resources. The nutrients, water, and ability to anchor down roots must all be available in the container where your plants grow. This puts a lot of pressure on the grower. Soil from the ground, or native soil, should not be the only soil used in a container garden. Native soil does not behave the same way when put into a container. It can create issues with waterlogging and airspace. Plants in containers will grow best with specific soil mixtures that properly support plants while also providing good water holding capacity and airspace. In most cases, container mixes do not contain any soil at all. Often they are referred to as soilless media. You can easily make potting media for your containers or purchase it from a reputable garden supply store. When buying potting media, be sure to choose a potting soil mix, not topsoil. Potting soil is commonly made of a mixture of sphagnum moss, perlite, vermiculite, sand, and other options. Depending on what you would like to grow, there are many potting media options available. For example, plants which prefer a drier soil will grow better in sandier mixes. However, vegetables will need a more nutrient-dense mix. You can make your own potting soil by using a mixture of perlite or vermiculite, sphagnum moss, sand, and compost. Consult the resources in this module for container soil recipes. If making your own potting soil, be sure to use clean materials and potting media components. This will help prevent disease and the spread of weeds. When filling a container with soil, do not place items such as rocks or broken pieces of pots in the bottom. The idea of this gardening myth is that the items will help with drainage. However, it is not effective and instead reduces the amount of soil that the plant roots will be able to access for food and water. If you are concerned about soil leaving the pot, then place a coffee filter or another sieve at the bottom to contain the soil. Compared to garden-grown plants, container-grown plants will need increased amounts of water and fertilizer. Check regularly for dry soil and add water based on the plant's requirements. The types of plants and their needs should also guide your fertilizing. Vegetables are likely to need more fertilizer than slower-growing perennial plants. Use a water-based or slow-release fertilizer to get nutrients into the soil, or foliar-based fertilizers for a quick fix. Many potting soils contain slow-release fertilizers, which can last from 2 to 10 weeks depending on the type. You can also add slow-release fertilizer to homemade media mixes. One good practice is to apply a soluble, quick-release fertilizer once every 1 to 2 weeks. Pay attention to how well your plant is growing. Look for signs of nutrient deficiencies to ensure there are sufficient nutrients for plant growth. Be sure that any container you use provides drainage for water through the soil. Usually there are holes at the bottom of the container so the roots and soil will not sit within the water. As we have discussed, plants need air in addition to water. If a plant is sitting in water, not only does that mean that there is no air for the roots, but it invites disease and can cause root rot. Always provide drainage for container plants to prevent disease and encourage healthy root and plant growth. It is a best practice to water your plants enough that it drains through the bottom. This indicates the soil is fully saturated. It also allows any extra salts to drain out of the pot and reduce buildup. When choosing a container, consider the container material, which may influence how often you have to water. For example, terracotta pots are porous and absorb water from the soil. Pay attention to how your plants behave in the containers you use. With raised beds, the soil within the bed can be different from the soil beneath it. The soil below a raised bed may be compacted or have a different structure and texture than the soil inside the bed. This can cause differences in water movement and root penetration. Because of the possible contrast in soils, plants do not often grow beyond the lower level of the raised bed. When choosing soil for raised beds, do not use native soil alone. Instead, use a mix that includes compost and topsoil to create a lighter soil mixture. Because raised beds can behave like big containers, you may need to improve the native soil with amendments to provide a better growing environment for your plants. Raised beds may also need watering more often and more fertilizer depending on the quality of the soil originally used. However, growing in raised beds is a great way to reduce compaction and start your garden with high-quality soil. Use the resources within this module to learn how to build and maintain raised beds for any garden. There's a great deal to learn about growing plants in containers, including indoor, outdoor, decorative plants, as well as vegetables. First, take time to learn what your plants need from a container to thrive. Then, build a healthy, supportive soil to help your plants grow.